And today is our second recording of the year, and the year is 2025. But last week, what we did was we read a portion that is specifically written to the new year in A Course in Miracles. But today we are going to continue on lesson 76 that we have been on for a couple of weeks. And it is the lesson, I am under no laws but God's. And this lesson, there is no more important lesson for these times than this one for someone who is well versed with the course. And the reason I say well versed with the course is because when you understand that all of the lessons, all of the text, all of the manual, everything is pointing us towards liberation, towards freeing ourselves from being under the oppression of our egoic mind. And when I say oppression, it really is an oppression. It's an enslavement. We are enslaved to a mind that opposes what God created for freedom. And when we understand that, this game is the game of awakening, it changes completely. Because when we start on this path of spirituality, for most people, not everybody, but for most people, the spiritual path usually starts with one of two things. One, I want to become more, I want to do better. I want to know my purpose. I want to become more abundant. I want to become happier. I want to get the right partner. I want my life to be better. I want to get my career. I want to know, what my purpose is so that I can make all kinds of money doing what I love doing. Wonderful path. The other path is I'm miserable with where I'm at. I don't want to be here. Get me out of here. I just don't want to be here. Either one of those two ways of entering this spiritual journey, and there is another way, but that path, which is typically made more consciously, is I either don't want what I've got or I want something different or better or more of what I've got. So it's very egoically driven. However, there's an impulse of the soul, because the soul is driving always, always, always our spiritual journey. Ego is always driving the journey away from source, and our soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is driving the journey back. It's a pull back towards truth or a blocking truth and moving further away from it. So that's the typical way that most people enter the journey, is those two ways. Then there's a couple of the other ways that are your soul is just leading the charge. And one way is when you have a tragedy that happens in your life, a diagnosis, a death, a loss of bodily function for some reason. I've got a dear friend. We became friends because he came to one of my workshops in Atlanta a while back when I used to have my center, and he had become a quadriplegic in an accident. So some of those things move you towards wanting to know, why me, God? And it's a movement towards truth. All of these are, by the way, but some are more spirit led and some are more ego led, and we don't know that in the beginning. That those things don't become clear until you can look at them in hindsight. But the reason I'm sharing this is because people who've been on this journey for a while need to be more conscious about what's happening. Am I moving toward God because spirit is guiding me? Or am I trying to get those wonderful things God promises because my ego wants a piece of the action too? So you gotta be clear. And really the easiest way to determine is if there's something specific that you're attempting to get, to acquire, if there is a specific goal, if there is an attainment of some sort, something you're trying to get, then you can pretty much be assured that ego is involved. On the other hand, if you know you're just letting go, I'm surrendering, I'm giving up this thing, I'm giving up that thing, then spirit is more involved. And for a while, we have to understand that when we incarnate 100%. It's pretty much, I'll say 95% spirit, 5% ego. Because ego is what gives us the ability to have experience a body separation. So there is ego involved. However, it's so minimal with a child, like my newborn babies. Mike, I don't know if you knew this, but my daughter's second child, she decided to have a home birth. And Ellie was born in the middle of the winter, March 4th, this past year. She'll be a year old in a few months. She was born on March 4th. And when the call came for me to get over here and for the midwife was on her way, I lived just eight houses, 10 houses down. So I had to just walk down the street. But it was the middle of, you could almost say blizzard conditions. And the midwife couldn't make it. So I actually delivered my granddaughter, which is one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I got there and Lauren's husband was like, okay, this baby's coming. Eric was talking to the midwife. Midwife said, get her down on the floor. So Lauren was going to have a home water birth. So we had the tub, everything was getting ready to get laid out. And there was the midwife heard one of Lauren's screams and she was like, she's not going to make it. So we got her on the floor in the bedroom. We didn't even have time to prepare anything. Ellie was born on the carpet, the brand new white carpet they had just installed a few months earlier. So anyhow, that experience forever sealed it for me in terms of the perfection that every child is born from. It's like pure goodness, pure essence, pure godness is born, and it descends into whatever family. Sorry, it always gets me so emotional. Just the majesty that I witnessed and was the first one to catch that little baby while Eric was talking to the midwife, telling us what to do with the cord and the placenta and all those other things. Anyhow, little Ellie and her little brother and all of your babies and grandbabies, they're all born in the highest state of possible godliness within a human body. So there's a little bit of ego, but hardly anything. It's really the ego that's keeping the body alive so that the body can have the experience of separation. But that mind is not activated into judgments and blaming and shame. That's not really happening in a strong way. It is happening because that baby in the womb is feeling the energy. Is mother contracted? Is mother withholding love because she's scared? Baby feels that. So the baby learns to either block love or expand love. And as you guys know, if you finish reading what we're going to be talking about tonight in the Untethered Soul, that's the chapter, the first chapter that we're talking about. We learn to withhold love because we're scared, which means we learn to block energy, our life force, we block it, or we are at ease and at peace, and we are just totally, completely open to whatever is going to flow through us. So little babies who know the truth of who they are maybe 5% ego there. And little by little, ego goes up. We move to Sandy. We move to 10% ego. We move to 90% spirit. You can see that in the little 1-2-year-olds. There's a shift that begins to happen. And then, you start moving into those toddler years. You start getting a little bit more of that egoic. It's all about me and I have it my way. I see that more with my 3-year-old grandson, where he has to have his way. The selfishness is there. I don't want my sister to have this. This is mine. So I'm watching it. So this little child that came up here with spirit and very little ego's taking over and spirit is dropping. There is a shift that is taking place, very clear, very apparent, and it is just part of the process. But it's perfectly okay. It's okay if there is a shift, because that is what happens on this journey. When we descend into being human, we shift down to operate from the ego's laws, and we forget God's law, spirit's law. So it's like it goes out the window. We forget it. Because we descend into and it's called density. We come into a very denser place where it's all about me and I got to protect myself, and it's the whole thing about protecting the body and fight or flight, all of those things become natural. And I'm not enough, and I got to acquire, and I got to become, and I got to do so that I can be. All of those things expend a lot of energy because we are so busy trying to become what what the ego tells us we need to become from a place of lack. I'm not already that, so I got to become it. Versus a little child, a little baby is born, they've got no desires to get this, get that, to become anything. They want to play with all of it. They truly have a sense of knowingness that they're abundant and everything is theirs. That's why they'll go grab it. Instead, I'm watching my little granddaughter wants to grab everything because she's entitled to it. And my little grandson, no, it's mine. So I'm watching, okay, this one's more in the ego, this one's more in the spirit, and it's okay. It's absolutely beautiful. So we have conversations about that. Do you like to be treated like that? Right? Or when Ellie takes something, no, I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. I said, well, then don't do it to her. And so teaching the most important lesson, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Jesus taught it 2,000 years ago. And we follow the laws of God's. That's how we would treat each other. Why? Because A Course in Miracles has taught us that we are one. We are one energy. We eventually, when we move out of our heads and we begin to feel, we can feel each other because it's one energy. And when we get really present, see, the ego works really hard to make us feel so separate that I can't feel your pain, which is why when people are run by their ego and they're selfish, they don't even mind hurting somebody. They don't feel the pain that they're inflicting upon another because they have blocked their ability to feel. It's so dense inside, it's so blocked and compartmentalized that they don't feel anybody else because they don't feel themselves. They don't feel that they're blocked. They feel that they are doing, they're protecting themselves. They're getting rid of whatever is going to hurt them. So they then choose to, well, I'll hurt you before you hurt me, because that protective mode is running the show. So when we get to a lesson like 76, I am under no laws but God's. If you've already been on this path for a while, then this lesson tells you exactly how to navigate what's happening in the world today. If you don't have that relationship with God, if you're not as deep into your journey, some of this makes no sense. What do you mean to that I think I should obey the laws of medicine or economics and of health to protect myself? And this book is telling me I shouldn't. I shouldn't follow the laws of economics, the laws of health, the laws of medicine. Well, if you want to free yourself, don't follow the man-made, and as it says here in quote unquote laws, which is in paragraph number 4, because it tells us in sentence 1 of paragraph 4, it is insanity that thinks these things, that to go outside of yourself is what makes you well. Now, while we are in the world and we're operating primarily from ego, that is where we go to get relief. And sometimes, yes, we get healed. But more and more science is proving that the bulk of the healing that is happening through conventional medicine, through specifically Western medicine, the bulk of that healing happens through the placebo effect. We believe in it. Now, when you begin to look at this objectively, if your ego's running the show 50% of the time and 50% spirit, that's a wonderful place to be, because you're pretty well balanced. Now you can call yourself out. Now you've entered the realm that inside of the manual for teachers, when you look at the characteristics of one who lives by truth, now you're entering into the realm of trust and of honesty, because you got to trust that God is going to take care of you. You've got to trust the laws. And it's not that God's going to take care of you. You got to trust that God gave you the power to heal yourself. If you don't trust that fully, you cannot experience that healing fully. You may get glimpses of it. You might even experience that healing through the doctor, because through placebo effect, you believe the surgery is going to work. It will work. It will take care of you. But then we have to be honest. And this is one of the most challenging parts of it. Doesn't matter what you're studying to wake up This is the most challenging part, is becoming honest of when you are listening to God and you're trusting what God said. I am the creator of my reality. Therefore, I contributed to my illness. I contribute to my wellness. Or are you believing that you cannot heal yourself, that the healing has to come from something outside of you? And egoically, because we've been trained that way, conditioned that way, you believe that it comes from the medical establishment. Or financially, you think your goodness, your safety, all of that's going to come from as it says in here, from economics. So meaning the government is going to take care of you, or the investments that you made to take care of you. So and here is something important to understand. All of those things work because all of those things are part of you. You've projected them. Nothing is really not you. But when you believe it's separate and that has power, you're not being honest, because for the most part, you may not be aware of it, that you projected power out there. So this process of getting honest increases as we shift our trust. So when we're looking at, I am under no laws but God's, do you really trust God? If you don't trust God, this is not going to work for you. If you don't trust God, then you are going to blame God. Okay, you didn't save me. You didn't provide for me. You didn't heal me. You didn't do this. So that's just going to keep you down here in the blame game and feeling guilt or anger or shame or just being in fear, because that's a very low frequency. You have really blocked love. You can't even feel the energy of God pulsing in you, which is just the life force, that through that life force we get inner knowing, intuitive knowing. If you don't trust that God is truth, and that God is loving, and that God created you, and you still have God on a cloud out there somewhere, like the church has taught us, deciding if you're naughty or nice, so you don't really have a relationship with God, you're going to have a very hard time believing that God is in you and it's pulsing in you and it's what animates you, because that life force that we experience, that's just pure God. And as we come in and little by little we descend into the lower densities of the ego, all we're doing is creating obstacles to feeling God. Because every single time you go outside of you to find what you're looking for, you're creating barriers. Oh, it's not here, it's out there. So then we create these big barriers to feeling God within, to accessing the power of healing, the power of peace, the power of inner joy, because we have built such incredible distances. No, it's out there. It's God is out there somewhere. And this journey is about bringing God inside. So to be under no laws but God's, and really take this to heart so that we can put it into practice, especially during these tumultuous times, because what is happening right now is that we're going through a shift of the ages. It's been predicted by all kinds of other civilizations, indigenous groups. If you have read anything by Dr. Greg Braden, highly recommend. I just ordered his latest book this morning. I just ordered it because he is speaking to exactly what is happening to us right now. We have been conditioned to give our power away. And more we're giving our power away to the government, to the establishment, to the medical systems. This whole AI thing, there is so much good in it when it is operated under the rule of spirit, to help make life easier, to facilitate things, absolutely under the power of spirit. But when egos are running that, egos that operate with greed and with selfishness, it's amazing. But Greg Braden, and he's not the only one. I've listened to so many people because I really wanted to get a hold of how this whole AI thing fit with A Course in Miracles. And I'm all that I'm listening, all that I'm primarily hearing is that humanity is right now at a point where we have to decide, are we going to become loving beings? Are we going to care about each other more than we care about our pocketbooks or about our status or about power? If we care more about each other, AI will always be in service to humanity. If we don't care about each other, if there are still people running the show who are selfish, AI is going to be used to, in essence, don't mean to put any fear out there, but to destroy humanity as we know it. Because when we are expensive to feed and to clothe and to care for and to school, why keep them around? So if you haven't done some research to the depopulation that is taking place, that has been in the works for a very long time, I'm talking hundreds of years being planned, because the ego has, it will wait however long it takes to get there. This is happening. As a matter of fact, there are verses, there are places in the Course in Miracles where we're being told, especially if you listen to the where Jesus gives a commentary on the lessons of A Course in Miracles through Tina Louise. I can't remember Tina Louise's last name. Her book is right here somewhere. Spalding, thank you. Yes, her book. Oh, I was reading the book last night. So it's over there a little further away. So in Tina's book, she reads every single lesson, and Jesus provides a commentary at the end of every lesson. In those commentaries and sprinkled throughout the Course in Miracles, we are being told that when ego is out of control, it attempts to control everything else. So we are at a time, and of course, if you listen to different channels, we are coming towards the end of a 36-year window that culminates around the year 2030, 2031, 2032, give or take, because time does not exist for source. So we make choices here that sometimes alter times a little bit, but approximately by the end of that time frame, 2030, 2031, humanity will have made a choice. Those who are aware, conscious, following spirit are going to ascend. Those who are listening to the ego are going to find themselves more contracted, in essence, moving to living almost lives that we won't even be able to recognize, because they'll be so vibrationally different that we won't be in each other's spheres. People that are so mad or angry or jealous or so in control, they won't even show up in your experience if you've become a loving, gentle person, because there'll be nothing in common. And typically we have to have a vibrational commonality to feel connected. But when we understand that we are under no laws but God's, it helps us navigate what is happening right now, so that we can practice the discernment that allows us to experience, is this a loving thing? Am I being asked to give up more of my rights, to give up more of my, my freedoms, or to utilize my body for more experimentation of things that have never been experimented on before, or maybe they have, but very little? Am I doing that because spirit is guiding me, or is my ego moving me in that direction out of fear? If you cannot be honest with yourself, what is happening inside of you, it's because you haven't really understood your purpose. Your purpose is to be an expression of love, that every one of us has incarnated to bring love to this planet. The question is, when we incarnate and we enter through the vessels of our family, if they're unconscious people, well, we're going to move down into lower frequencies, because if ego runs our parents' lives and our grandparents and the churches that they go to and the local schools that we are going to attend, then ego is going to teach us how to be like them. If, on the other hand, we incarnate into more conscious families where we're giving more of a true teaching about what God is, what we are, where we are taught that we are made in the image, where we're not made to believe that we're separate and some are better and some are lesser, but true equality is taught in the home and in the community. And that is what we experience, which is so much of what this country was founded on. The principles, so sorry about that. The principles that all men are created equal, endowed by God with the same inalienable rights to the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Life, liberty, and happiness means that if we're doing what excites us, is we're operating from our life force. We're not blocked. We're energetically not blocked. We're really doing what we're here to do. Then this world, this country, specifically America, was set up to allow for the development of our skills, our talents. It is such a country filled with liberty. That's what we've been known for these last couple hundred of years, because over 250 years ago, we had people who shifted here from the United Kingdom, came here because this was the land of opportunity. Why? Because when we listen to God, we are not afraid. We're courageous and we're always pursuing freedom. That is the hallmark of one who really is aligned with spirit. There is a sense of freedom. Why? Because God gave us freedom. We have the ability to choose anything that we want. That's why we have free will. But if we don't understand that we're free to begin with, we literally allow ourselves to be imprisoned in systems that are not loving. They're very selfish, very greedy, even though they sound like they're for the greater good. They're not, because that's one of the trickeries of the ego, is it makes things sound good. It sugarcoats everything to get us to move down into those lower energies. So life, liberty, and the pursuit of freedom. We have life, we have this thing pulsing through us, we have an innate desire for freedom. When you're not constrained, when you are free and have healthy boundaries that are helpful for the greater good of all, you're always going to be happy. That is automatic. Now, 250 years later, this country is known for the highest levels of depression and insane numbers of murders and attacks and abuse. And it's like, well, how did this happen? Well, it has happened. And this is one of the things that Greg Braden speaks to in his book. It has happened because we have not been taught deliberately how to connect with spirit within. The spiritual journey is a journey of coming to know who you are and then freeing that aspect of yourself to be itself, allowing it unbounded to do what it does. Because when we are listening to spirit, we are always going to be following God's laws. There is no way that one who is tapped into spirit is going to follow the laws of man and have the results that they could get if they would have just been following spirit. That's why those instantaneous healings happen. People who go to what do you call those? Naturopaths and operate naturally, finding herbs and natural remedies, things that are alive, that have energy in them, that haven't had the energy snuffed out of it and put into a box and turned into dead cereal that has no nutritional value. Those who have been studying, who understand, whether it's Eastern philosophies, Eastern medicine, or what do you call that, shamanic types of healings, understand the power of finding the God essence, the energy in a plant, because you're looking for that which is alive, that aliveness that sparks that aliveness within you. When those two products come together, your body and that plant, that herb, that substance, that whatever it might be, when they come together and create that alchemy of well-being, is because you got life force activated on both ends. But when we've been used to so much of, and listen, there are good things about Western medicine. If I break an arm, I'm going to go to the doctor, to the Western doctor to set my arm. I'm not going to go to my local shaman, because that's not their expertise. So there are amazing things to help assist with our physical functions, our bodily functions that are part of the 3D realm. However, what we're doing is we're increasing our connection to God, following God's laws, so that we can little by little by little rise above the low density of the ego, where the only way you can get well is if you pay money, where there has to be an exchange of money for care. That's why we got insurance and we've got doctors that, I just recently, my son got mauled by a dog. Actually, it's been almost a year. It's wild to believe that. Got mauled by a dog, and he went to, those of you in Atlanta know Grady Hospital, and because he happened to live in that area, so he went to Grady Hospital, and they did the emergency work that they needed to do, but he didn't have insurance, and he's a young kid, and he's a carpenter. He's practicing in that trade, doesn't have a whole lot of money. They denied him the rehab work that he needed to do to get his arm moving because he couldn't pay for it. So instead of providing, I mean, yes, you could say, well, they saved his life. Yeah, they probably did save his life because he had some pretty big bites and pretty big the punctures of the dog's teeth into him. Yes, and sometimes the dog ripped down and ripped some of his muscles. Sorry for all the graphics, but anyhow, he couldn't get the rehab there. So I'm like, okay, mom stepped in and I paid for private rehab for him to get things done that he needed to be done. So we're moving out of a time where we are so transactional, which is of the ego, because the ego transacts to make money. For the most part, that's how the ego operates. If you're one that money is not what runs your life, then you're listening more to spirit. We're using the money in the world. We're in the world and dealing with money, but we're not of it because that's we wouldn't let somebody be hurt or die or get sick or go hungry because of money. We just don't do that when you listen to spirit because you're doing it to yourself. You and that other person are one. So when we operate from God's laws, we are lifting, we're raising the bar. We're saying, like Jesus walked upon this planet over 2,000 years ago, you can kill my body. I'm not a body. I'm the, I am as God created me. My body is not really real, and shocked those people at that time. Today, we're basically being asked to be the second coming of Jesus, to begin to acknowledge, excuse me, that you're not a body. You are the consciousness. You are the mind that is running the show. And when we align with that truth and we operate in the knowingness, the benevolence, and the majesty of being an expression of God on this planet, of being the second coming of the Christ, we are literally activating the Christ consciousness within us. And it is what has little by little by little, all these thousands of years, a little bit more light on the planet, more light, more people become kinder, more people become gentler, less people become greedy, more people become helpful and share. We are finding so many people on this planet who are assisting one another, who are helping and caring and doing all kinds of things because they know that stuff doesn't add to what we already are. Stuff is here for us to use and to play and to have it be part of our experience. Under the laws of God's, we are creating all of this. So we're winding ourselves back in. We're coming into the point of power. Instead of going out there to the doctors, to the government, to the God out there, we're coming in here. Healing is in here. Governance is in here. God is in here. It's all in here. And when you know it's all in there, now you're moving into the place of the honesty that is necessary as a characteristic of a teacher of God. Now you can be honest. There's no power outside of me. And if I go out there, I go to the grocery store to get food to maintain me. I am playing the game. I know I'm going, okay, I'm so excited. I have this body. I have this, I'm living this town. I've projected this sweet little town with a grocery store over there, natural grocers that has the kinds of things that I like as I become vegetarian. One of the things that happened to me 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago. And so I go and I get those things and I bring them home and I lay them on my counter. I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful that they're here, that my lifetime is a lifetime where I have some of that freedom and liberty, to pursue the things that I enjoy doing. And I do generate some cash and I can trade it for the groceries. I'm playing a game. That game is a beautiful game. It is a lot of fun. It's so similar to when I used to play Monopoly with my brothers and sisters. None of us had money, but yet all of a sudden we had paper money and we passed it around. None of us had hotels, but all of a sudden some of us had hotels and some landed on hotels or houses or somebody's property. And we were passing money back and forth and we had so much fun. When the game was over with, it was over with. Even the one that had the most money, it's not like they took it and all of a sudden magically this was real money and they could control the rest of us. But in real life here with the ego running the show, it's very transactional. We have moved out of the heart and moved into the wallet because your self-worth is connected to your net worth. It depends on how much you have that you feel good and safe and capable, like you achieve something. We're shifting to a time when that does not matter. So let's go into paragraph number 9. So we've already discussed the previous paragraphs, and basically what the essence of these teachings so far is to let us know that if you're giving your power away, those are not God's laws. God laws say you have the power. You, because you were created in the image of the creator, can create the illusion that you have no power and the power is outside of you, and your mind will believe it. If you decide that the medicine is what has power over you, you've got to go get that medicine again because of the placebo effect. You have convinced yourself that's the only way it's going to work. If you decide that you're going to heal yourself and you don't need that medicine, guess what? You're using the placebo effect again. You are deciding, no, I'm cured. I'm going to be just fine. But you have to be honest. Are you accessing the power of God to do the healing? Because that's the only thing that heals. Or are you allowing the ego to convince you otherwise? All right, so let's go to paragraph 9. There are no laws but God's. Dismiss all foolish magical beliefs today and hold your mind in silent readiness to hear the voice that speaks the truth to you. You will be listening to one who says there is no loss under the laws of God. So when you look at those two statements, to get quiet and hear the voice that is telling you what to do for your healing, including if it's to go to the doctor or to go to the shaman or to stay home and rest or to drink some lemon juice or whatever. You can hear that intuitive guidance. You have to have learned how to listen to that intuitive knowingness. So you may have had to do some work to prepare yourself, learn how to meditate, learn how to get quiet, learn to contemplate, go into the woods, do whatever it takes to allow you to see what is ego talking and what is ego or what is Holy Spirit saying. Because they both say some things that are very different. Sometimes they're a little similar. The ego is very tricky and it's very similar. And sometimes the Holy Spirit will speak to you in ways that you may be more familiar with, and will activate in you to say or to think certain things that are not necessarily what you would think that would come from God. That would be a holy thing to say, but it's a holy commandment. It's an inspiration for you to move in a direction that is more loving. Yes, even if you have to let go of somebody, you wouldn't think that God would say, I've got to break up with you. But sometimes that is the path that is necessary to move you in the direction with the current that is moving us upstream or downstream towards where all of the good things are. But the ego speaks in a certain way. So it's hard to hear God when the ego is talking. Very difficult. I don't know anybody who in the beginning of their journey can be super clear all the time, 100% of the time. Heck, there are times 20 years into my journey that I still have to sit down and go, wait a second, was that God or was that ego? Because I have to sit and feel, how does that make me feel? I'm pretty well practiced, so I can just hear it now. I can tell the difference, but still. So we've got to dismiss those foolish egoic beliefs that pull us in the direction of feeling that we have no power, that power is outside of us, that we cannot heal ourselves, that all of that is outside of that, we're not going to be okay. So we got to dismiss those foolish beliefs. But the only way you know they're foolish is you have to get your mind silent so you can recognize the foolishness of those beliefs. So then you begin to hear the voice that speaks the truth to you, because God is your life force. God is what allows you to have this human experience. God is interested in you finding the groove to flow with the truth that you have eternal life. That's why our founding fathers wrote what they wrote. We were created by God, endowed with the same inalienable rights to life. Number one, life, because we have eternal life, liberty, and happiness. And I've done a lot of talks on that where I match those because they go hand in hand. Those founding fathers felt God. They didn't need a Course in Miracles. They had their own personal experience to be able to do the courageous thing that they did to found this new land, to come here where they had never been before. And then no, because they were following an intuitive guidance that said, that's where you got to go. They trusted, they got on those boats that not all of them made it across, and they came over here and they did all of the things that against so many odds, they did what they did because there was a life force moving them. It was not blocked by egoic fears and doubts and worries and, oh my God, and self-protection. I might as well stay here in the UK where I'm okay. I may not have anything, but at least I'm alive. They followed that life force that said, you're going over there. And then they got over here and they just wanted freedom. And guess what? Just about every one of our founding fathers met a horrible end to their lives because the powers that were from the UK that didn't want them leaving, the monarchies, made sure that these people suffered horrendous demises because they declared that the people in this country that were born in this country, that came to this country seeking to become American citizens, patriots, I'm not sure what they call them at that time, were coming here to experience the same thing because they knew we all deserve happiness. We all deserve to be free and do whatever it is that we want to do. If we're not hurting anybody else, let us do our own thing. But when you've got those who are in control, who do not benefit from people being free, who benefit only from oppression and payment of taxes and getting permission, they didn't like that. Every one of our founding fathers, I mean, it's just amazing when you go back and hear the stories, not just them, but some of their families were tortured to teach lessons to other people. Don't you dare try and run away and be free. You cannot be how God wants you to be. You're going to be how we tell you to be. Well, that's those who are listening to the ego and think that they have more power over everybody else. We're at a time where we got to find our mojo. We got to move. That's why courage is up here. Courage, you cannot enter into the realm of true spirituality without the courage to face anything that is attempting to tell you you've got to do anything by not only a voice outside of you, but even the voice of the ego inside of you. So sentence number 3, you will be listening to one who says, because it's the voice inside of you, there is no loss under the laws of God. Our founding fathers knew we're not losing our lives. We have eternal life. We're losing this physical body. Sure, it's a temporary vessel. Jesus did that for us. They had learned that from Jesus because Jesus told us, I'm not a body, I am free. You can crucify this body, but it doesn't end the life force that is in me. It goes on forever because I don't block it. I don't block it because I don't have beliefs that say that I can block it, or that you kill my body, you kill the life force. That's not, they don't go together. The life force animates the body while you use the body temporarily. You drop the body, but the life force is eternal because that's what you're made of. That's the essence of who you are. So there's no loss under the laws of God. Payment is neither given nor received. Exchange cannot be made. There are no substitutes, and nothing is replaced by something else. God's laws forever give and never take. This can be a challenging statement to understand because our ego has been trained for a very long time, not from the beginning, but for a very long time, to exchange. I pay you, you give me. It's an exchange like that it's okay when you've got a cow and somebody has eggs and you've swapped some milk for eggs. Beautiful thing. We didn't keep tabs of things like that, really. It's not a big deal because the cow makes milk every day and the chicken makes eggs on a regular basis. So we didn't live in scarcity. We traded, we took care of each other. That's way, way back then how we did things. But through the sophisticated systems of the mind, the egoic mind that has created not only the Western medicine that is so industrialized and so full of chemicals, and the banking system that is so about some win and others lose. That's why in America right now, actually around the world, but specifically in America, we're watching a lot of pushback against the central banking system, these systems that think that they get to decide what happens with the money. And now so many things are coming into the foreground. If you've never read or heard about a book called the the creature from Jekyll Island, a very courageous man, high frequency. If you listen to him, Edward Griffith, you can feel the essence of peace in him. You can feel the certainty that it was his purpose. Part of his incarnation was to bring forth the information that he put into that book that has been revolutionizing the financial system, because he shows how our central banking is completely illegal. Our government, based on the way that it should have been done constitutionally, was not followed. So the central banks were created, the Federal Reserve was created. It's not federal because it's a private entity and there's no reserve. So when the system collapsed, financial system collapsed, they have no reserves. And other things were done to create more problems with that. You got to go back to the Bretton Woods Agreement. So many things were done that financially have hurt humanity because they were decisions that were made out of greed. So when you begin to step back and watch, wow, all of these rules and regulations that were done, which of these rules and regulations are man's? Which ones are God's? And humanity now needs to really pay attention, because for the next about 5 years, we're going to see come to the foreground, especially due to the recent elections, the laws that are about control and the laws that are about freedom. The laws that seek to return the ability for the people to communicate. We're watching that with Facebook right now. This is when you begin to understand what the Course is teaching you. It makes it so much easier to be in the world, but not of it. Then you can see clearly what's taking place. So Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg just recently announced that they're going to stop using fact checkers. They're going to stop monitoring people like they were and deciding what you can and cannot say. I got banned so much. I hardly use Facebook because my account was shadow banned so many times. People couldn't even see what I was posting because I was speaking to freedoms. I was speaking not only to, we have a God-given right to choose not to take experimental jabs if we don't want to. Well, I was labeled misinformation person, whatever. And eventually I was like, okay, what the heck? I don't communicate important things, not on Facebook. I've found my other ways to communicate with other people. And now we're seeing all of a sudden, oh, wow, we have a new administration that does believe in freedom of speech, which is granted protected, I should say, by our founding fathers, because it's a gift that God gave us. We have the ability to utilize our voice to say whatever it is that we want to say. And we should never, ever, ever be punished for saying things that somebody else doesn't like. And of course, I know that we have agreements, so don't yell fire in a dark, crowded movie theater, because people will trample each other and they can hurt each other. So we don't want to be irresponsible with the use of our voice. But if you're just simply saying, I don't agree with that, you should be censored. If you can say, let's talk about this. Here's my side. Here's your side. You show me why yours works. I'll show you why mine works. Then we can have a dialogue, which is part of the work that we're here to do, is respect the differences, but share what we know. Because when we share what we know, we then assist in having greater knowledge for the collective, because not one of us can possibly know everything that is knowable. It's not possible. Now, we can have access to one who knows everything, but for that, you have to have gotten quiet and listen to only God. And all your decisions then come only from that place. But even if you are one of those people and all your decisions come from that place, if somebody is listening to their ego and your decision, which will always encourage you to experience freedom, to follow your heart, to trust that you're eternal, that don't be afraid of anything, that's always going to be threatening, because that's a courageous thing. That's always going to threaten those who seek to maintain control. Because those who seek to maintain control, the thing that is most uncomfortable for them is somebody who is free and not under control. So if they're not under their control, they're going to seek to get rid of them, which is exactly what happened to Jesus and to many more. Because when they're only listening to God, you can take this body. Give me liberty or give me death is a statement that has been said by very courageous people, because when you are no longer trying to protect the body, that's when you're actually closest to being the most free, if not totally free. Because if you're not just trying to protect your body, and I'm not saying not to protect your body, more than ever, we need to try and protect our bodies as much as possible so we can be here at this time to be a beacon that shines its light brightly to show others the way that we have found. Because we are the second coming of the Christ. We are showing how we connected with the Christ within. When I dismiss the foolishness of the ego and I'm listening, because I'm quiet inside and I can hear the voice of God, that is when we are allowing the life force of God, the power of God, to illuminate through us an undeniable effervescence, an undeniable glow that comes from happiness, from certainty, from peace. And we stand out in the midst of people who are completely blocked and completely covered up in sadness and worry and fear and concern. Well, in a world that is filled with abundance that God created for us to enjoy, but the ego has made just a mockery of, we have to learn how to sift. If God gave us plants, then there should be food for everybody. If God gave us the land and water and gave it to us pristine, it should be clean. It should be available to all of us. But when the ego begins to say, no, this is mine, this belongs to me, and what comes out of here, that's my profit, then we have somebody who is serving themselves versus God having given to all of us. That's why this statement says, exchange cannot be made. There are no substitutes and nothing is replaced by something else. God's laws never give and never take. God doesn't bargain. Oh, if you be good, I'll give you this. If you behave, you can get that. God knows that when we are operating from a place that is wholly within and we're giving joyfully, gladly, no selflessly, what we need comes back around for us. You know, Jesus walked around, many of wonderful sages have walked around on this planet and they were taken care of. There was a beautiful story in the 70s. Her name was Peace Pilgrim. That's what they called her. I don't remember her first name, her real name. But she felt the movement of God within her and she decided, I'm going to walk this country. I will be taken care of. And for over 20 plus years, Peace Pilgrim walked from town to town. It used to be, you can go watch YouTube's the news when they knew Peace Pilgrim was walking to their town, because sometimes it would take her a day to walk from one side of the, one little town over here to another little town over there. They were so excited to see her come and they wanted to hear, why do you do this? And she's like, because God takes care of me. All of her messages was, I know where I'm going because God guides me. I know I'm going to be taken care of because God takes care of me through people. Nothing ever happened to her that was not nice along her trip. She just spoke about the kindness and the loveliness of the people that she trusted because God told her to. Absolutely beautiful. Now, at the end, she ended up dying because she got hit by a car as she was walking. What an interesting twist of events. But the message is that she followed the guidance within and she was always taken care of. And just absolutely beautiful. So when you know God's laws, you know that it is not about money, but money is okay. We use money here. God doesn't want any of us to go without, but we don't have to sell our soul for money. We don't have to overpay to get something because we're in scarcity and we're afraid. We need to learn to listen to God, to hear the guidance that is going to begin to move us out of our comfort zone. Moving out here was not part of my plan. My ego was saying, no, stay where it's warm. But Holy Spirit was saying, no, you've got to go over there. And you're not a body. You don't have to walk around thinking that you're going to be cold and miserable. That you can do that if you want to. And I quickly got over here. It's like, why would I do that to myself? It's 6 months of winter. Am I going to spend 6 months whining, complaining that it's too hot and I'm Latin and I shouldn't be here? Or am I going to experience that I am where I'm supposed to be? This is where the best teachers that I could have at this stage of my spiritual career, my spiritual journey, the highest, most enlightened beings that I could be with is with little ones. Any of us, that the most enlightened masters are under the age of 3, and maybe under the age of 4. Because those are the ones who are teaching us to remember that God gave us life. We see it. I got to see it come out of a body vessel, of a beautiful womb that was holding this little child perfectly for 9 months. There is pure perfection in so much of our human experiences. That little child came out free as can be, absolutely, totally, completely free. So free, she was naked. She had nothing with her, no attachments to anything. Well, maybe the umbilical cord, but that didn't last long. And that little baby has been able to thrive because she has been given the liberty, the freedom to play and to move and to do whatever she wants. Now she's scooting around, but she's got a lot more freedom now. It's funny to watch her, the way she scoots. I've never seen a child scoot like that. And happiness. That baby is happy just about all the time, except for when she's got poopy diapers or she's hungry or she's tired, then she gets a little fussy. She's just giving us information. She's just giving us signals, but nobody is being manipulated. She doesn't say, if you give me a bottle, if you hold me, then I'll smile at you. She doesn't do that. Her smiles are freely given because it's not an exchange. She's not exchanging. Those things get taught later. Oh, you pick up your room, then you get allowance. You do this, then you get that. You do your homework, then you can try out. The exchanging, the do this and get that, and the transactional relationships, those begin to come. I'm watching it with my grandson. No, you can't have this until you eat that. There's definitely something happening there. But it's not for me. My daughter has a pretty good level of consciousness. So she is paying attention to things because she wants to raise her son as much as possible under God's laws. But she herself is not fully 100% there, or even in a strong way there, like I am. So I get to sit back and not judge. I get to sit back and accept that these are their soul contracts. They're doing what they wanted to do. They picked each other for a reason. I get to witness so much of this. And so much of my being also here as a witness of how my daughter and her husband parent is to practice acceptance, to practice neutrality. I don't know what anything is for. So when we understand God's laws and we understand these lessons, the text, the characteristics, it becomes so easy to put into practice a way of living that allows us to really be at peace, to be a contributing member of society in a way that is collaborative and co-creative, not transactional, which is so important that we understand that anybody who is speaking for God is not seeking to control somebody and get somebody to give up something. Somebody who's speaking for God, it's all about a life force that gets to express itself, that gets to multiply our joy, our excitement, that we want to be contributors, and everything else and that happens in the world, the things that you have to do, like money and houses and blah, 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 and cars, that happens, but you're not, that's not why you do it. It's not transactional. I'm not doing this to get that. I lived a lot of my life that way. I know how the bank account used to control my life because it had to have so much in there for me to be okay. And now that's not how I live my life. And I've never lacked what I needed since I shifted to that way of thinking. Specifically in 2014, when Ken and I got divorced. Well, actually, it was probably 2012 because it was before that I could see the signs. And I was listening to God's guidance because I was listening to the Course in Miracles. I was attempting to live into the characteristics of a teacher of God. And I began to see, wow, all attachments that I had. No wonder that marriage had to dissolve, to show me where I had attachments, where I had ideas as a little girl, raised to believe that I needed a knight in shining armor to take care of me, then I would be okay. And I had to see, no, that's not what provides my being okay. My being okay comes from God. I need to go find that relationship inside and cultivate that one. That's my knight in shining armor, if you're going to have one, but it's my freedom, is that relationship with God within. All right. So that will be, so today is lesson 178 or transmission 178. I'll post it on YouTube. I'll see some of you guys tonight for our book study, which is going to be so much fun. I love that we're doing that book, especially talking about energy today. And does anybody have anything you want to share or any comments? And if not, we will see you later. Yes, Mike. Thank you.
I wasn't aware that you delivered a baby. So that is so cool.
Isn't
Really,
that? It was truly one.
really,
It is. It even delivering my own, I didn't quite experience it the same way. I was under anesthesia. I took epidural, so I was partly numb, so I couldn't feel certain things. I was there, I was present. It was still magical, but to be 100% present with my daughter, no meds, no pulls, no nothing sterile, was magical.
that
Yeah,
was, that it was.
yeah.
All I could do was just sit there and hold my wife's hand.
Thanks
But
for doing that.
yeah, all three of those births were magical.
It
So,
is pretty
so
amazing.
yeah.
Pretty amazing. And with this consciousness with my grandbabies was so amazing. I had no awareness. I was so asleep when I gave birth to my first kids. It was amazing, but I didn't appreciate that I was a portal through which God was coming into the planet. I didn't know any of that stuff. If anybody had said to me, I would have thought they were crazy. Get that nut out of here. But anyways, we'll love you guys. And we will see you, like I said, some of you maybe tonight. Take care.
Thank you, Laina. Love
Bye.
you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye bye.
Bye.